Hello, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about what I think is a critical issue with respect to our efforts to communicate about important issues in life, particularly in the context of politics and the degree to which our leaders, political and otherwise, are failing to help us understand what it is we're talking about and what the options are as we try to make decisions about what the best choice is that we need to make regarding the different issues that we're facing. And I'd like to illustrate this point with one of the recent controversies that has surfaced regarding Florida's African American uh, history standards. And I'd like to start by pointing out Vice President Harris's comment in particular regarding these standards. I'm going to focus on one line, although I think her speech on July 21st encompasses, and that's July 21st, 2023, encompasses many points that are actually good points with respect to the importance of history and knowing our history, et cetera, but goes totally sideways when it comes to talking about what the standards themselves represent, how they're structured, and what their objective is in presenting African American history to Florida students. One of the things I would note is that several commentaries seem to be suggesting that these standards are standards for what should be taught in the course of a year or in high school. But as I understand it, in the time that I've had to look at the Florida standards and the background, these are actually standards for K through 12 schooling, so that you would actually be covering these topics in greater and greater detail as students are moving through the Florida school system K through 12. And the issue that has developed is focuses on one line in particular. It particularly came to the forefront when Vice President Harris went to Florida on July 21st to deliver a speech rebutting what she presents as a claim in the Florida standards. So here is the excerpt, the transcript from Vice President's speech, and we see in the comment she makes referencing this one line in Florida's standards. And now, on top of all that, they want to replace history with lies. Middle school students in Florida to be told that enslaved people benefited from slavery. That claim has been made by many people in the news media and elsewhere. And the claim has been made uh, by people with and without reference to what Vice President Kamala Harris said in her statements. But I want to suggest that there are one or two ways to understand this claim, maybe one of three ways. One, uh, people have not read the standards, have just heard what somebody else said, and just are repeating this claim about what the standards stand for. A second is that people read the standards and simply didn't understand what the line that is being referenced is saying. This is one line out of a 216-page document, 190 plus or minus lines of which actually deal with African American history. And so they may just, for whatever reason, not understand what the statement itself is saying. The third option is that they are simply lying about the standard. The first option, that they're just going off of what somebody else says, is a dereliction of duty with respect to if you're going to be a leader making claims about something that you stand for or claiming to represent what your opponent or the other side stands for, you need to be accurate and factual about what those claims are. Uh, the second and third problems, either you do not understand the statement that is being made or you're lying about the statement, are problematic for different reasons, particularly in the context of the vice president. One, if you don't understand the standards, well, that's a problem because these standards are created for educators to guide them in their instruction of K through 12 students. And I would expect that anybody in a position of leadership would be able to read the standards and see what they say. They may disagree with what the standards are standing for, but they ought to at least be able to honestly represent what the standards are. And then the third issue is perhaps the most problematic. They're just flat out lying about what the standards stand for. So when Vice President Harris makes his claim, and when many others in the media and social I'm not sure what to call it, but the social stratosphere make claims and post about the standards with respect to this framing of what the standards stand for, it's a problem. So let's look at what the standards actually say. So here's Florida State Academic Standards, Social Studies 2023, and we see that it is a 216-page document. So here's the actual line. So the standard is examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves, e.g. agricultural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, transportation. And in benchmark clarification, instruction includes how slaves develop skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. So the actual standard, or actually the benchmark clarification for the standard, that is being misrepresented by Vice President Harris and others to create this furor over the standards, Florida State Academic Standards, talks about the skills that were developed and the skills themselves being applied for personal benefit. One of the authors, at least one of the authors, who was involved in creating these standards, has discussed this in more than one interview and place that I've seen, and others may have as well. But it's clear that Vice President Harris and any who repeat what she is saying about the claim that the standards suggest people benefited from slavery, it's clear that she is misrepresenting, again, either unintentionally or intentionally, what the clarification actually is. And that's the problem with so much of our political discourse. It happens on the right and on the left, but it's an issue that needs to be addressed and resolved if we're going to actually be able to agree to disagree in a constructive way as citizens of the United States of America. It's important to be able to speak freely, but it's also important to be honest with oneself and with others in the context of speaking freely, so that when one makes a claim about what one believes oneself or what someone else is purported to believe, that those claims reflect what is actually believed, not some caricature of the belief in order to score political or other points. So again, just wanted to take a minute to point out a particular instance which I think is causing unnecessary and unhelpful and destructive friction in our political environment, our social environment, and keeps us from addressing very real issues in a constructive way so that we can move forward as a country. Thank you for your time. Look forward to hearing what you have to say about this and other topics. Thank you much. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for your time. I've got a couple other videos listed here if you'd like to take a look at those. And as I'd like to discuss issues related to politics, religion, society, and how in the world we're supposed to understand ourselves and life in the world. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.